There was a time when India was not a nation enclosed by lines on map. There was a time when Bharat was civilizational force, fluid, luminous, expansive. It did not travel with armies. It did not announce itself with conquest. It moved quietly through merchants who carried more than spices, through monks who carried more than manuscripts, through scholars who carried more than language, through sacred geometry that transformed landscapes into mandalas. This is the story of India outside India, not as a slogan, not as nostalgia, but as a civilizational reality. Today we journey not merely across the space, but across time. We travel to a land that is politically not India, yet culturally, philosophically, spiritually resonate with it. Imagine walking through dense tropical forest. The air is heavy with scent of rain-soaked earth. The canopy above is thick, almost impenetrable. And then suddenly the stone Shikhara rises. Not ruins, not debris, but geometry, axis, cosmos in carved form. This is Cambodia, a land where temple spires pierce the jungle like frozen flames, where every corridor whispers of Vishnu reclining on the cosmic ocean, where every lintel speaks of Shiva's cosmic dance, where rivers are remembered as sacred and mountains are imagined as Meru. In this landscape stands Angkor Wat, not merely as the largest temple complex in the world, but as a civilizational manuscript written in stone. Cambodia is not simply a country with temples, it is a civilizational canvas. When we speak of Indian civilization today, we often confine it to present day geography. But civilization is not cartography, it is transmission. Between the 1st and 12th century, Sanskrit inscriptions appear across Southeast Asia. The Shaka era was adopted. Kings assumed the title Varmana. Concept of dharma, karma, Mount Meru, Vishnu became embedded in the new landscape. This was not colonization, this was civilizational diffusion. Ideas traveled without armies, they transformed the entire society. Cambodia, ancient Kamboja, evolved through several phases: the Funan period, the Shenla period, and then the Great Angkorian Age. Across these centuries, Indian philosophical vocabulary was absorbed into Khmer soil, not imposed but internalized. By 9th century, the Khmer king began building monumental temple cities. Capitals shifted from Hariharalaya to Yashodharapura, each one expanding the sacred geography. Water reservoirs called barai were constructed, vast engineered bodies of water that were not only hydraulic achievements but cosmological statements. This landscape itself becomes ritualized. And then, in the 12th century, under King Suryavarman II, a new vision emerged, a temple unlike any before it. That temple was Angkor Wat. Suryavarman II ruled in early 12th century. Inscriptions describe him as learned monarch, a patron of ritual, a king who studied sacred text and presided over elaborate ceremonies. He dedicated Angkor Wat to Vishnu. This is important. Most earlier Khmer temples were Shaivite. Angkor Wat is Vaishnavite dedication, marks both continuity and innovation. The temple was conceived as Vishnu Loka, the celestial abode of Vishnu. But Angkor Wat is not simply dedicated to a deity, it is dedicated cosmology. Let us understand its scale. The outer wall measures over 1 kilometer in length. The moat, nearly 190 meters wide, surrounds the complex. The entire enclosure spans more than 200 acres. But the size is not the point. Meaning is. The moat represents the cosmic ocean. The concentric enclosure represents the mountain ranges surrounding Mount Meru, the mythical center of the universe in Hindu cosmology. And at the heart rises the central tower, symbolizing Meru itself. When you walk through Angkor Wat, you are not merely moving into the space, you are ascending the universe. The temple faces west. The orientation was deliberate. Nothing here is accidental. The galleries are covered with bas reliefs, kilometers of narrative sculpture. And what do they depict? Mahabharat, Ramayana, Samudra Manthan. This is epic literature carved into stone. Pause for a moment. What does it mean that the Mahabharat is sculpted in Cambodia in 12th century? It means that the epic was not foreign there. It was lived, understood, and integrated. We must be very clear here. Angkor Wat is Khmer masterpiece, an Indian thought manifested in Khmer architectural style. Indian ideas traveled, but Khmer architects reimagined them. The scale, the sandstone articulation, the engineering of barais, the precision of axial alignment, these are uniquely Khmer achievements. This is an intellectual assimilation followed by creative transformation. India provided a sacred vocabulary. Cambodia composed its own epic with it. How did these ideas travel? Through maritime network. The Bay of Bengal was not a barrier, but it was a bridge. South Indian merchant guilds sailed to Southeast Asia. Diplomatic missions moved between Khmer court and the Cholas of Tamil Nadu. Trade routes connected Nagapattinam to Mekong Basin. Along with spices and textile traveled priests, astronomers, architects, and text. This was soft power in its purest form. No empire, no occupation, no cultural eraser, only exchange. Angkor is the vast urban complex, one of the largest pre industrial cities in the world. Recent archaeological studies show the extensive network of canals, reservoirs, roads, temple clusters across the greater Angkor region. This was sacred urbanism. Water management was not separate from cosmology. Engineering was not separate from ritual. Spirituality and science were integrated. Temple was the axis, but the entire landscape was sacred. Centuries later, when French explorers encountered Angkor in 19th century, they were stunned. Restoration began, chronologies were reconstructed. But for Cambodia, Angkor was never forgotten. Today, Angkor Wat appears on the Cambodian national flag. It is the source of immense pride, and rightfully so. Recognizing its Indic civilizational connect with Cambodian identity enriches our understanding of shared heritage. Why does this story matter? Because it challenges modern assumptions. We live in an age where influence is equated with domination, but Angkor reminds us of another model, a civilization that spread through knowledge, through metaphysics, through trade, through architecture. Angkor Wat stands as stone testimony that Indian thought, once traveled without violence, was embraced, adapted, transformed with dignity. It reminds us that civilization is not territory, it is transmission. When you stand before Angkor Wat at sunrise and the five towers rise against the golden sky, you are not merely looking at a monument, you are looking at a memory of a connected world, a memory of shared cosmology, a memory of intellectual confidence. The real question is not what is Angkor Wat. The deeper question is what kind of civilization imagines the universe as architecture and then builds it across oceans. And perhaps more importantly, can we remember that civilizational confidence again? What are your thoughts on this? Please share it in the comments. If you want to explore science behind temples, ancient temple culture, or want to know more about ancient knowledge systems, stay tuned to this channel.